Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay. Couple of things are all coalescing at once here and why we're before committee right now. Just in the last, I believe in the last 2 weeks, the Government of Canada came to Vancouver, to my home province, and they outlined that China's assertive pursuit of its economic and security interests, advancement of unilateral claims, foreign interference, and increasingly coercive treatment of other countries and economies have significant implications in Canada. That's the position of the Government of Canada. On December 7th, the Minister of Industry outlined in his departmental explainer of why we need to amend the Investment Canada Act is to grant authority for the minister to extend national security reviews for investment. So since December 1st, the Government of Canada has come forward and said, one, the threat of China in Canada is very real and very concrete. Two, the Investment Canada Act is not strong enough to protect Canadian sovereignty, and that more needs to be done to ensure our sovereignty is protected, both by expanding the powers of the minister and our ability to conduct reviews. I will add a third point that was added. The government of the United States has already acted in a similar fashion against said company in discussion today. So the government of Canada also outlined that China's rapid and dramatic modernization, and as it becomes more assertive, Canada must step up as a reliable partner in the Indo-Pacific region to promote security and stability. And that brings us to our committee here today. We have an opportunity in good faith with just a few meetings to look very closely at a decision of the Government of Canada, which rightfully so they recognized needed to be looked at, and they took action, but we need to know what was behind those decisions. And we need to make sure that we do better as a country to stop awarding contracts to companies with ties to the People's Liberation Army or the government of China. We can do better, and this committee has a direct responsibility to look very closely at what took place. Announcements aren't enough. This committee can lead towards concrete actions and better protection of Canadian sovereignty. And I will note, as a British Columbian, there was a reason why the government came, obviously, to British Columbia, because BC is the gateway to the Indo-Pacific region. And I will say, as a British Columbian MP, these concerns are very top of mind for many people, both in the integrity of our institutions and our economy. And they want industry committee to be looking closely at these things. I think all committee members should work very closely together. Let's do a quick study. Let's improve the way we protect Canadian sovereignty. We have a duty. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I should say, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Viss, for the promotion this morning. I'll turn to Mr. Gahir. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chair. It's great to be back at the committee. So I tend to agree with my colleague, Mr. Erskine-Smith. When we received wind that this motion is coming to committee, the first question that comes to mind is why Indu? Why is it coming to Indu? Right? There's other committees that it could go to. And when you look at the text of the motion, which we received actually during this very meeting and not beforehand, it's clear from the motion that the focus is a 2017 transaction, right? And so perhaps the Minister of Innovation makes sense, but why is this motion being used as a Trojan horse to bring in all these other ministers into Indu when this could be studied in a different committee? And the ICA Act is also being strengthened as well. So when that comes to committee, we'll be able to review this very issue of, is it strong enough? That's my proposition.
Thank you, MP Gahir. J'ai Monsieur Généreux.
Mr. Généreux. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was the mayor of a city at one time, and at that time, we implemented a procurement policy that allowed us to purchase locally. Now, we have a situation here where there were two companies, one from Quebec, one that was Chinese. They were in competition, but the difference in the bids was about $60,000, and the bid went to the lowest bidder. Now, given the differences between these two bidders and given the importance of the contract, it is absolutely essential that we be able to ask questions of the ministers on this list in order that we understand the process that was used that allowed this contract to be allowed for such a small amount difference in the bidding amounts, and especially when it concerns issues of security, national security. And I would invite all the members of this committee to consider this. If the Quebec company was able to offer these services, to offer the RCMP, that means that we have the necessary technology to do this work here in Canada. And therefore, we should be putting questions to the minister. How is it that in Canada we do not enable the purchase of Canadian technology, and if we're not doing that, how are we advancing in technology? I think these are important issues to raise. So we have a number of people on the list here. Yes, it's quite a high number of individuals, but if we do this professionally and effectively, I think we can get through this list in order that we get the answers we want to our questions. Thank you very much.